AITA for refusing to help my sister with her wedding because of my past trauma. I, 32F, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger sister, Emily, 28F. Growing up, she was the golden child in our family, smart, charismatic, and seemingly perfect. I was more introverted, struggled with anxiety, and often felt overlooked. Our parents always praised her achievements and seemed to dismiss mine. This dynamic created a lot of resentment in me, though I tried to hide it. Over the years, I've been in therapy and worked hard to set boundaries and process these feelings, but they still linger underneath the surface. Emily has always leaned on me financially and emotionally, often without much thought for my own limits. She's married twice before, both ending in drama that require me to step in to help with emotional support, logistics, and sometimes even financial assistance. I've started to notice a pattern. She tends to rely on people around her heavily, without reciprocating or appreciating it. That being said, she is my sister, and I have helped her when I could, though it's always left me drained. Last year, Emily got engaged again to a man named Daniel, 30M. I met Daniel a few times, and while he seems nice enough, I don't feel like I know him well, nor do I feel comfortable around him yet. When she announced her engagement, she immediately started planning a lavish wedding. She insisted that I be involved in every step: dress fittings, planning the bridal shower, organizing seating charts, and even helping pick out the flowers. I initially tried to be supportive, but my anxiety flared up at the thought of juggling all of this. On top of that, the last wedding I helped with was exhausting, and I didn't feel emotionally prepared to go through another one with the same intensity. I told Emily that I didn't feel comfortable taking such a hands-on role this time, suggesting I could help in smaller ways, like attending meetings virtually or assisting with minor tasks. She reacted very negatively. She told me that a sister's support is non-negotiable for her wedding, that she expected me to be there fully, and that refusing to do so was hurtful and selfish. She implied that if I didn't help, I didn't love her or care about her happiness. I tried to explain that my mental health and boundaries are important, but she dismissed it, saying that my past issues were not her responsibility. Our parents sided with her, saying that I should step up for family. I felt trapped. Every time I tried to set limits, Emily escalated guilt-tripping tactics. She started texting me constantly, sending lists of things I had to do, and even making passive-aggressive comments on social media about how some sisters aren't there when it counts. I felt like I was being punished for taking care of myself. I attempted to meet her halfway, offering to help in small, defined ways, sending her curated flower ideas, attending a single dress fitting, or assisting with RSVPs, but she refused, saying that partial help wasn't good enough and that I was being lazy. The situation escalated further when she started threatening not to invite me to the wedding if I didn't comply. This struck a nerve because I've always valued our bond, but I also felt that being forced into a role I wasn't comfortable with was unhealthy. I decided to be firm. I would attend the wedding as a guest, celebrate with her, and offer emotional support, but I would not take on a primary organizing role. I made it clear that this was about protecting my mental health, not about rejecting her entirely. After I set this boundary, the family drama exploded. Emily accused me of being emotionally manipulative, and my parents suggested that I was being immature and selfish. Several extended family members took sides, with some agreeing that I should help and others privately telling me that it's okay to protect my boundaries. Daniel, her fiancé, has largely stayed out of the conflict, though he has expressed disappointment that I wouldn't fully commit to the wedding planning. I've been stuck in a whirlwind of guilt, confusion, and anger ever since. I feel like my family is prioritizing Emily's expectations over my well-being, and part of me is angry that I'm being framed as the villain simply for saying no. My friends have been supportive, reminding me that I have a right to boundaries, but my parents' and sisters' reactions make me second-guess myself constantly. I want to celebrate my sister's happiness, but I also don't want to lose myself in the process or feel forced into emotional labor that I am not equipped to handle. Emily's wedding is in 3 months, and I am worried that showing up as just a guest will make her feel like I'm not invested in her life. even though I'm trying to support her in a way that is sustainable for me. I also feel conflicted because I want to maintain a relationship with her long term, but I worry that setting boundaries now will cause a permanent rift. I don't want to be alienated from my family, yet I also don't want to sacrifice my mental health to satisfy someone else's expectations. So, AITA for refusing to take on a primary role in my sister's wedding and insisting on attending only as a guest while maintaining my boundaries. I feel like I'm caught between my love for her and the pressure to conform to family expectations that don't consider my mental health. I've tried compromising multiple times, but it seems like nothing I do is ever enough. And now I'm left questioning whether standing up for myself makes me selfish or if it's actually a necessary act of self-preservation. I would appreciate some perspective because right now, it feels like there is no winning, only navigating a minefield of guilt, expectations, and family drama. I know family loyalty is important, but I also know my limits. The tension between my desire to celebrate my sister and my need to protect myself has never been more intense, and I'm unsure how to navigate the final weeks leading up to the wedding without causing irreparable damage. Every suggestion I've made to participate in a smaller capacity has been dismissed, and I'm starting to fear that no boundary I set will ever be respected. I feel trapped in a situation where either choice comes with emotional consequences, and I need an outside perspective on whether prioritizing my mental health in this context makes me the villain or if my family's reaction is unfair. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious. When do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to let my younger brother's girlfriend move in with us despite her hardship situation. I, 34M, live with my younger brother, Alex, 29M, in a suburban house that our parents left to us after they passed. We've always shared expenses evenly, and while we aren't millionaires, we manage comfortably. About 6 months ago, Alex started dating someone named Sophie, 27F. At first, I didn't think much of it. She seemed nice, and Alex was genuinely happy. Things started to get complicated about 2 months ago when Sophie told Alex that she was having a really rough time financially. Her job hours had been cut, and she was struggling to pay rent and bills. Alex, feeling protective and wanting to help, started hinting that maybe she could move in with us temporarily. I was immediately uncomfortable with this idea. Our house wasn't huge, and while we had a guest room, it's not really set up for long-term living. I also value my personal space and quiet, which I was afraid would disappear if another adult moved in. When Alex first brought it up, I tried to be reasonable. I said that I understood Sophie's situation, but we weren't in a position to offer free housing. I suggested that she look for short-term rental options, sublets, or even temporary roommates. I also mentioned that our house was set up primarily for us and not for someone else's long-term stay. Alex got defensive and said I was being cold and uncompassionate. He pointed out that our parents would have wanted us to help someone in need. I countered that helping financially or offering advice is one thing, but giving up our space isn't a decision I could make lightly. Over the next few weeks, the tension escalated. Sophie began bringing up the topic in casual conversation whenever she came over, often implying that it would be no big deal if she stayed. I explained to her directly that moving in wasn't going to happen, trying to be polite but firm. She said she understood, but then started making subtle comments about how families should stick together and it's just temporary. I felt like she was guilt-tripping both Alex and me. Alex became frustrated with me, claiming that I was prioritizing comfort over kindness. He started staying out late more often and making passive-aggressive comments about how I was so rigid and inflexible. I tried to have a serious conversation with him, saying that my decision wasn't about hating Sophie or wanting to make his life harder, but about my boundaries and the practicality of our living situation. He accused me of being selfish and unsupportive, and I realized we weren't making progress. Things came to a head last weekend. Sophie stopped by unannounced while Alex was at work. I was home, and she started talking about moving her things in soon and how she might just leave a few things here for now. I calmly told her that it wasn't going to happen and that she needed to make other arrangements. She got visibly upset, said that I was being heartless, and left in a huff. Later, Alex came home, furious, claiming that I had ruined everything and that I was turning Sophie against him. I explained my reasoning again, pointing out that our home was our shared sanctuary and that bringing another adult into the mix would create tension, stress, and possible resentment. I reminded him that helping someone doesn't always have to mean offering your home, and that there were plenty of other ways to support Sophie, financially or emotionally. Alex yelled, stormed out, and has barely spoken to me since. Sophie unfollowed me on social media and has been texting Alex about how unsympathetic I am. Some mutual friends have weighed in, with some saying I'm reasonable for having boundaries and others saying I'm being unnecessarily rigid and that family should step up in tough times. I feel conflicted. I don't want to seem cruel, but I also don't want to compromise my home and personal space, which I've always valued highly. I'm leaning toward thinking that I made the right decision for myself, but the fallout with Alex has been stressful, and I'm worried that our relationship might be permanently damaged. I also wonder if I should have tried harder to find a compromise, like offering short-term financial help or helping Sophie find a cheap rental rather than flat-out denying the living arrangement. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my brother's girlfriend move in with us, even though she's in a difficult financial situation. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she insulted my parenting. My sister, Clara, and I have always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, we were close at times, but there was always this underlying tension that neither of us could completely shake off. Our personalities are very different. She's extremely social, outgoing, and career-driven, while I'm quieter, introverted, and very family-oriented. Despite this, we've managed to support each other through big life events, though not without friction. Recently, Clara got engaged to her fiancé, Mark. She's been dreaming about this wedding since she was a teenager, and I was genuinely happy for her. I have a 4-year-old son, Liam, and I've always tried to balance my responsibilities as a parent with maintaining a relationship with my sister. Clara knows that my parenting style is hands-on. I'm very involved with Liam's day-to-day life and try to prioritize his needs above all else. When she announced the wedding date, I was excited but also a little anxious. The ceremony is going to be very formal and long, and I worried about Liam sitting through it. I suggested that we hire a professional babysitter or even consider a short childcare plan at the venue. Clara immediately dismissed the idea, saying she wanted family to be present and that Liam could handle it because kids are resilient. I thought that was reasonable enough, so I agreed to bring him. The issues began at the bridal shower. Clara's friends and extended family were present, and I tried to participate and be supportive, but I noticed she kept making subtle comments about my parenting. She laughed at the fact that I don't let Liam eat candy unsupervised, saying he was too sheltered and that I was overreacting as usual. I laughed it off, trying not to make a scene, but it stung. I've always prided myself on being a careful, attentive parent, and to hear my sister dismiss it in front of everyone was embarrassing. The breaking point came when she sent out a group chat message to all the family about wedding plans, including seating arrangements. She wrote something like, "Liam might get fussy, so I guess my name. We'll have to keep him entertained during the ceremony. Hope it's not too much work for her." I responded politely, saying I understood my responsibility as a parent, but would appreciate some consideration, especially if she expected me to juggle both Liam and any other duty she might ask of me. Clara replied with a laughing emoji and said, "Come on, it's not that big a deal. You make everything so serious." At this point, I felt a mix of anger and hurt. This wasn't just playful teasing. It felt like a public criticism of how I raised my son. I decided to call her to discuss it, hoping a private conversation would help. I explained that while I understood she wanted everyone to enjoy the wedding, her comments about my parenting were disrespectful and undermined my authority as a parent. I also emphasized that Liam is my responsibility, and I want to ensure his comfort during a long event. Clara's response shocked me. She laughed and said, "You always have to make everything about yourself. It's my wedding, and you're making it about Liam and your parenting again. Maybe you're too uptight to enjoy a party." I was speechless. She hung up before I could respond. After that, I tried reaching out multiple times to salvage the situation. I offered to meet halfway, suggesting a professional babysitter for part of the ceremony or arranging a quiet space for Liam if he got restless. Each suggestion was met with either dismissive comments or outright laughter. I began to realize that this wasn't just about Liam at the wedding. Clara seemed intent on insulting my parenting and controlling the narrative around me and my family in front of everyone. Eventually, I made the decision not to attend the wedding. I wrote her a long message explaining my reasons, the repeated insults about my parenting, the lack of respect for my choices regarding Liam, and the emotional stress it caused me. I also expressed my disappointment because despite our differences, I wanted to be there for her. I left the door open for reconciliation after the wedding, hoping we could repair our relationship later. Clara responded angrily. She accused me of being dramatic, selfish, and ruining her special day. She posted on social media, implying that I had abandoned my family for trivial reasons and that I was too controlling and uptight to enjoy life. Some family members have taken her side, while others have privately reached out to support me. I feel conflicted. On one hand, I know this wedding is important to her, and I hate that we're estranged over this. On the other hand, I cannot tolerate being publicly mocked for my parenting choices, and I cannot compromise Liam's comfort or well-being for the sake of avoiding conflict. I've always tried to be the kind of parent who protects and nurtures my child, and this situation feels like it was asking me to abandon that for appearances. I've reflected on whether I could have handled things differently, perhaps by letting minor comments slide or trying harder to appease her expectations. But I keep coming back to the fact that her behavior crossed a line. It wasn't constructive criticism, it was ridicule. I also wonder if attending under these conditions would have permanently damaged my relationship with Liam, who might sense my stress and discomfort. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she repeatedly insulted my parenting and dismissed my concerns about my child. I feel like I'm standing up for myself and for Liam, but the backlash has made me question whether I overreacted. I'm now in a position where I have to navigate post-wedding family interactions, and I'm not sure how to approach reconciliation, if it's even possible. Clara has not reached out beyond angry social media posts, and I anticipate family gatherings being tense. I love my sister, but I also need to maintain boundaries that protect my mental health and my parenting choices. I understand that weddings are stressful, and perhaps some of my actions seem rigid, but from my perspective, attending the wedding under these circumstances would have required me to compromise my dignity and the well-being of my child. I don't want to escalate further, but I also don't feel I can let the situation slide without consequences. The hardest part is knowing that our relationship may never fully recover, at least not without genuine acknowledgement of the issues. I hope that by standing firm, I am setting a precedent for respectful communication in the future, but I'm painfully aware that it has come at a high cost. Has anyone else been in a similar situation where family dynamics clashed with parenting responsibilities and boundaries? How do you balance maintaining family relationships with protecting your child and yourself? I'm struggling to see a path forward that doesn't involve resentment or ongoing conflict. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of a past family betrayal? I, 32F, have always been close to my family, especially my younger sister, Emma, 28F. Growing up, we shared everything from secrets to clothes, and I've always tried to support her in every way possible. Our parents divorced when I was 15, and I spent most of my teenage years trying to be the grown-up in the family, helping to mediate between her and our parents. Despite that, things have never been entirely smooth. Emma can be very controlling and has a tendency to hold grudges. The issue started about 3 years ago. Our father, who had been estranged from Emma for a while, decided to reconnect. I didn't have a problem with this and actually encouraged them to talk because I thought they could patch things up. Emma, however, has always been wary of Dad because of some old arguments and a particularly messy divorce settlement. When Dad reached out, She immediately shut him down and told me that she didn't want me to be involved in any discussions with him either. I tried to respect her boundaries, but I also felt torn because I wanted our family to heal and didn't want to completely cut Dad out of my life. Fast forward a year, and Emma started planning her wedding. From the beginning, she made it clear she wanted it to be perfect and incredibly exclusive. Only close family and a few friends, no exceptions. I was fine with that and even offered to help organize it. As the wedding plans progressed, I noticed that she was making decisions based on grudges rather than practicality. For instance, she refused to invite certain relatives who had minor disagreements with her over the years, and she was being incredibly critical of every suggestion I made, even though I was offering help out of love. The final straw came a few months ago. Emma asked me to help with the seating chart. While organizing, I noticed she had completely excluded our father. I asked her about it, and she said it was non-negotiable because of past issues. I tried reasoning with her, pointing out that this was a day for unity and celebrating love, and that excluding Dad would hurt me deeply. Emma refused to budge. I then realized that she was intentionally using the wedding to enforce a family feud. I told her I couldn't attend if Dad wasn't allowed because I couldn't stand being in a room where I felt forced to choose between my sister and my father. Emma exploded, accusing me of trying to ruin her day, being selfish, and even implying that I didn't really love her because I wasn't willing to respect her wishes. I tried to compromise by suggesting a private moment before or after the wedding to connect with Dad, but she was adamant. Our mother even got involved, trying to convince me to attend for the sake of family peace, but I stood my ground. I reminded everyone that I couldn't support a day that actively excluded someone I loved, and that I wouldn't be able to celebrate genuinely if I felt I was betraying part of my family. The fallout has been intense. Emma hasn't spoken to me since I told her I wouldn't be attending. My parents are upset and think I should suck it up and go. Other family members are split. Some agree with me and believe Emma is being unreasonable, while others think I'm overreacting and prioritizing a past conflict over the present. Here's the part that makes me feel conflicted. I know this day is incredibly important to Emma, and I genuinely wanted to be there for her. I even tried negotiating ways to make everyone feel included without compromising her vision, but she shut every idea down. I also feel guilty because I worry I might be judged as the villain in the eyes of other family members and friends. In my mind, a wedding should be a day of love and unity, and it's painful for me to think of celebrating when part of my heart is being excluded. I also fear that attending might set a precedent where Emma's grudges dictate how I navigate other family events, essentially forcing me to choose sides. Repeatedly, I reached out to a few close friends for perspective. One friend said I'm doing the right thing by standing up for my principles, while another said I might be letting my emotions get in the way of family obligations. I'm struggling because I don't want to cause a permanent rift with Emma, but I also can't ignore my values or the bond one have with my dad. I considered sending a gift and a heartfelt letter expressing my love and support from afar, but part of me worries this will come across as passive-aggressive. I also know that once the wedding passes, the tension might continue to linger, potentially straining my relationship with Emma and the rest of the family for years. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her decision to exclude my father, even though it's her special day and I wanted to be there. I genuinely feel torn between standing up for what I believe is right and maintaining the peace in my family. Has anyone else dealt with a situation where attending a loved one's major event would conflict with your values or relationships? How did you navigate it without completely burning bridges? I'm open to perspectives from all sides because, honestly, I'm still not sure if I handled this in the best way. The last thing I want is to be remembered as the family member who ruined her big day, but I also can't ignore my conscience or my relationship with my dad. AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding because of her partner's behavior. I, 29F, have always been close to my extended family, especially my cousin, Melissa, 31F. We grew up together, spent summers visiting each other, and shared most major life events, so when she got engaged to Mark, 33M, I was genuinely happy for her. At first, things seemed normal, and I tried to be supportive. I even helped her with small wedding-related tasks, like dress shopping and brainstorming invitation ideas. I was excited about the prospect of celebrating her big day. However, over the past 6 months, my feelings have changed drastically because of Mark's behavior. From the beginning, Mark came across as charming, but controlling in subtle ways. He would make sarcastic comments about Melissa's family, often saying things like, "You all are so overdramatic," or "Do you really need to do everything this way?" At first, I brushed it off, thinking it was harmless joking, but then I noticed that his remarks often targeted the people closest to Melissa, including myself. He frequently undermined her opinions in conversations, subtly criticized her choices, and acted dismissively whenever she expressed a concern. I started observing patterns that made me increasingly uncomfortable. At family gatherings, Mark would monopolize conversations, redirect praise to himself, and sometimes make comments that seemed passive-aggressive toward those around him. For instance, at Thanksgiving last year, he spent nearly an hour criticizing the way my aunt cooked the turkey and then acted surprised when she got upset. I also witnessed him make small, snide remarks about Melissa's friends, implying that they weren't good enough for her. The more I saw, the more I felt that he was not just controlling Melissa, but also creating a tense and hostile environment for everyone around him. Melissa, for her part, seems to dismiss most of this. She says that Mark has a dry sense of humor and that I am reading too much into things. I've tried to talk to her gently about it, giving specific examples, but she defends him every time. I'm aware that it's her choice who she marries, and I respect that, but the issue is that attending the wedding now feels unsafe and emotionally exhausting. I have social anxiety, and Mark's presence often makes me feel cornered or belittled, even in casual conversations. I tried attending one of the engagement parties, but the night left me shaking and anxious, and I ended up leaving early. A few months ago, Melissa asked me to help organize the bridal shower. I explained that I was uncomfortable being in close contact with Mark and that I couldn't handle planning an event where he would be present the entire time. She became defensive, insisting that I was overreacting and that families should stick together for the wedding. When I refused, she accused me of being unsupportive and jealous. The tension escalated, and some other family members got involved. My aunt and uncle said I should put personal feelings aside for Melissa's big day, but I feel like I'm being asked to ignore valid concerns about someone's behavior that has consistently made me uncomfortable and anxious. I made the decision to decline attending the wedding, explaining to Melissa that my choice was about my mental health and emotional safety, not about not loving or supporting her. I offered alternative ways to celebrate, like taking her out for lunch before the wedding, hosting a small pre-wedding gathering, or helping with things behind the scenes that didn't involve Mark directly. Melissa reacted very negatively. She told me that I was choosing a stranger over family and that I was letting Mark win. She has since stopped talking to me and has posted pictures on social media from wedding planning events that she knows I am not attending, seemingly to guilt me. Other family members have weighed in, and opinions are divided. Some say I'm doing the right thing by protecting my mental health and setting boundaries. Others say I am being dramatic and that I should rise above it because it's Melissa's wedding and family should be united. I feel torn because I love my cousin, and it hurts to see her disappointed in me, but I also know that being in the same space as Mark is extremely stressful and could trigger panic attacks. I've tried reaching out to Melissa multiple times to explain my position calmly, emphasizing that I care about her and want her to have a happy wedding, but that I cannot attend because of my discomfort with Mark. Each time, she dismisses my concerns, saying that I'm making it about me and that I'm holding her back from being happy. I've also considered attending just the ceremony, but I feel that would still put me in a situation where Mark's behavior could overwhelm me. My friends have told me I am justified in setting boundaries, but family pressure is immense. I am getting messages from relatives suggesting that my refusal is selfish and that I'm causing unnecessary drama. Some even hint that I might permanently damage my relationship with Melissa if I do not attend. At the same time, I feel like attending would be compromising my own mental health and giving implicit approval to behavior I find manipulative and toxic. So, AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding due to discomfort and concern about her partner's behavior. I want to celebrate her happiness in ways that don't put me in emotionally unsafe situations, but my decision has caused a lot of family tension and hurt feelings. I'm struggling with the idea of being seen as unsupportive, even though I'm trying to prioritize my well-being while still showing love for Melissa. I also fear that no matter what I do, the family will view my choice as betrayal, even though it's about maintaining boundaries and self-care. I want to do right by my cousin without sacrificing my own mental health, but it's becoming increasingly difficult to navigate the expectations of family and my own limits. AITA for refusing to let my younger sister take care of my dog while I was away, and now my family is upset with me? I, 29F, have always been very close to my dog, Max, a 4-year-old Border Collie mix. He has been part of my life since I adopted him from a shelter, and over the years, I've built a very structured routine around him. He gets up at 6:30 a.m., goes for a long walk, has breakfast, and spends a day in a mix of crate time and supervised play. He's generally calm, but he has some anxiety issues, especially when strangers or loud noises are involved. Because of this, I'm very careful about who takes care of him when I'm away. Last month, I had to attend a work conference out of state for 5 days. Since I couldn't take Max with me, I started looking for someone to care for him. I considered boarding him at a professional pet care facility, but I ultimately decided I wanted him to be at home with someone familiar. That's when my sister, Lily, 26F, offered to take care of him. She lives about 15 minutes away and has had dogs before, though mostly larger breeds that were very easygoing. She has never had a dog like Max, and I've noticed that she sometimes struggles to follow routines or rules consistently. When Lily offered, I was hesitant but didn't want to offend her. I explained Max's routine in detail, including feeding times, walking schedule, and even his preferred types of treats and toys. I also mentioned his anxiety issues, especially around loud noises and new people. I try to emphasize that Max is very sensitive, but Lily insisted she could handle it. After thinking it over for a few days, I realized I was genuinely worried. Max is not just any dog. He's very attached to me, and I know that even small disruptions in his routine can cause him significant stress. I decided to hire a professional pet sitter who would come to my house twice a day and a dog walker who would take him on his regular walks. This way, he could stay in his familiar environment, and the people caring for him are trained and experienced with dogs who have anxiety. When I told Lily about my decision, she was upset. She said I was being unfair and that I was implying she couldn't take care of Max properly. She also said that it was a bit ridiculous to hire professionals for just a few days. I tried to explain that it wasn't about doubting her love for Max, but about ensuring his well-being and minimizing his stress. I emphasized that Max's anxiety is serious and that I needed to make the choice that was safest for him. Lily's response was not what I expected. She started telling my parents that I was being controlling and unreasonable. She framed it as if I didn't trust family and preferred strangers over them. My parents, who were generally supportive of me, sided with her partially, saying I should have at least given her a chance, and that it seemed harsh to hire people when family offered help. They called me a few times after that, asking if I would reconsider. I stuck to my decision, explaining once again why it was important for Max's health and emotional stability. During the conference, I started receiving subtle jabs from my family. My mom sent me a text saying, "Max probably misses you, but at least Lily could have tried." My dad mentioned in a group chat that sometimes family is better than strangers, even if it's only a few days. I didn't respond to these messages because I didn't want to start an argument while I was focused on work. When I returned home, Max was fine, calm, and happy. The professional sitters had done an excellent job, and he had stuck to his routine. However, the tension with my family didn't go away. Lily barely spoke to me at dinner and kept making passive-aggressive remarks about how professional sitters are so much better than family. My parents seemed frustrated with me, hinting that I overreacted and that I made a big deal out of nothing. I honestly feel conflicted. On one hand, I think I made the decision that was best for Max, who relies on me and is very sensitive to change. On the other hand, I understand that my family feels hurt and they see this as me choosing strangers over family, which feels bad from a social standpoint. My friends mostly support my choice, saying that putting the dog's well-being first is reasonable, but my family thinks I overstepped. I also feel like Lily is taking this personally, even though my decision had nothing to do with her capabilities as a person. I tried to explain that it wasn't a matter of love or affection, but about ensuring Max stays comfortable and stress-free. I even offered to bring her by to meet the professional sitters and see how the routine worked, so she could be involved in future visits or care, but she declined. Now, a few weeks later, the tension is ongoing. Family gatherings feel awkward, and I'm wondering if I should have just let Lily take care of Max despite my concerns to avoid conflict. I feel guilty for sticking to my decision, even though I believe it was the right choice for Max. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my sister take care of my dog, prioritizing his well-being over family feelings, and hiring professional help instead? Or was I justified in my decision, even if it upset my family? AITA for refusing to babysit my niece for an entire month while my sister is traveling, even though my parents think I'm being unreasonable. I, 27F, live in a small city about 2 hours away from my hometown. I work full-time as a graphic designer and recently started a part-time freelance side hustle, which has been taking up more of my evenings and weekends than I expected. My sister, 32F, has a 6-year-old daughter, Lily, and she recently asked me to watch her for an entire month because she's going on a work trip abroad. She framed it as a huge favor that I could do just to help out the family, and she was very persistent, saying it would be impossible for her to go without me taking care of Lily. At first, I tried to negotiate. I said I could help for a week or maybe 2, but a whole month was too much because I had work commitments and other responsibilities. I even offered to pay for part of a nanny or someone else to help cover the rest of the time. My sister didn't take any of these options seriously. She kept insisting that I was the only one who really knows Lily and that she wouldn't be comfortable with anyone else. I explained that my work schedule is unpredictable and that taking care of a 6-year-old full-time would seriously impact my own mental health and productivity. I also have my own apartment to maintain, bills to pay, and freelance clients depending on me. My sister argued that I don't understand how much she's doing for me when I occasionally watch Lily on weekends, and that this is just repaying the favor. I eventually said no. I told her that I would be happy to help for a week or a few weekends, but a full month was not possible. My parents got involved after she called them upset, saying I was refusing to help the family in a huge way. They were upset with me and said I was being selfish and not valuing family obligations. My mom said, "Your sister has always helped you, and this is the least you could do to return the favor. A month is nothing in the grand scheme of family." My dad said I needed to grow up and stop thinking about yourself all the time. I try to explain again that I have my own life and commitments, and that this isn't about being unwilling to help at all. It's about my capacity. I'm happy to help in ways that are reasonable, like watching Lily for a weekend or during school breaks. But a whole month is beyond what I can reasonably manage. My parents told me that I was overthinking it and that I just needed to step up, which felt dismissive of my actual responsibilities. Things escalated when my sister started texting me daily about how everyone else in the family would do this without complaining, and that Lily would be very sad if I didn't agree. She also reminded me about all the times she's helped me in the past, like giving me rides, babysitting my pets, and lending me money in emergencies. I get that she has helped me, but I feel like she's using that as leverage to guilt me into something I can't realistically commit to. My friends say I'm in the right, because a month of full-time childcare is a huge responsibility and it's not something I should be guilted into. They also pointed out that my parents are setting a precedent that family obligations override personal boundaries, which could cause resentment. On the other hand, my sister and parents have painted me as selfish and unwilling to help, and they've been cold toward me since I said no. My sister said she's disappointed in me and that she doesn't understand how I could be so inconsiderate toward family. My parents keep asking me to reconsider, but I feel like if I give in now, it will only reinforce the idea that I have no right to say no when family asks for unreasonable favors. I offered compromises, I could watch Lily for 2 weekends, help pay for part of a professional babysitter, or even schedule some video calls so Lily could see me while I'm not there. Nothing was accepted. My sister wants the full month in person, and my parents say that anything less is not enough. I'm exhausted by the pressure. I genuinely care about my niece and my sister, and I help when I can, but this situation feels like it's ignoring my life, my work, and my mental health. I'm starting to feel like maybe I'm being selfish, but the idea of taking on a month-long responsibility that I simply cannot manage is terrifying to me. I also worry that if I say no again, my family will permanently see me as selfish and it will damage our relationships. So AITA for saying no to watching my niece for an entire month while my sister is away, even though my parents and sister believe I should do it. AITA for refusing to co-sign my sister's mortgage after she got divorced. I, 36F, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger sister, Rachel, 33F. Growing up, we were close, but our personalities are very different. I'm more cautious and structured with money, whereas Rachel has always been more impulsive and tends to take risks without fully thinking things through. Despite our differences, I've always tried to support her, especially when she was going through tough times like her divorce 2 years ago. Rachel was married for 8 years, and her ex-husband was controlling and financially irresponsible. When they divorced, she was left with significant debt, including credit card balances and a car loan, but she also got full custody of their 2 children, Mia, 8F, and Ethan, 6M. Since the divorce, I've helped her in various ways. I helped cover daycare costs temporarily, lent her money for emergencies, and even helped with budgeting and planning. I never wanted her to feel abandoned, but I also made it clear that she needed to take responsibility for rebuilding her finances. Recently, Rachel told me she wanted to buy a house. She found a property she loved, and it's in a good school district, which is important for the kids. The problem is her credit score is still poor because of the debt from her divorce, and she has limited savings. She asked me to co-sign her mortgage to make it possible for her to get approved. She assured me it was temporary and that she would rebuild her credit and refinance in a few years so my name could be removed. I was taken aback. Co-signing a mortgage is a huge financial responsibility. If she defaults, I would be liable for the loan, potentially putting my own credit and financial stability at risk. I asked her to show me her finances, including her income, expenses, and how she planned to manage the mortgage long-term. I also asked if she had explored other options, like waiting until she had a larger down payment, seeking a smaller loan, or looking into first-time homebuyer programs. She said she had, but none of those options would allow her to get this particular house, which she insists is perfect for her and the kids. After reviewing her numbers, I realized that her monthly expenses combined with the mortgage would likely strain her budget. She also has no emergency fund, and her job is somewhat unstable. I told her I could not co-sign the mortgage. I explained that it was not about not wanting to help her, but that co-signing would be an enormous risk for me and could jeopardize my own financial goals. I suggested alternatives like continuing to help with budgeting, contributing to the down payment as a gift or loan if she needed it, and helping her research other financing options. Rachel reacted very negatively. She accused me of not believing in her and being selfish because I wouldn't take on what she called a temporary risk. She said I was being unsupportive of her and the kids, and that a good sister would help her get stability for her family. She even brought up that I have no children and don't understand what it's like to be in her position, implying that my judgment was irrelevant because I haven't experienced her struggles. I tried to remain calm, emphasizing that my refusal was about protecting both our futures. I reminded her that I've helped her in the past and that I would continue to support her in ways that don't put my financial security at risk. I also offered to help her find a financial advisor or explore government-backed programs for single parents looking to buy a home. She dismissed all of this and said I was making excuses and that if I loved her, I would step up. The situation has caused a huge rift between us. She has stopped speaking to me except to send passive-aggressive messages, and our family members are divided. Some relatives say I should help because it's my sister and her kids, and that family comes first. Others agree with me, saying that co-signing a mortgage is a serious responsibility and that Rachel needs to be accountable for her own financial decisions. I feel stuck. I want to support my sister and help her achieve stability for her children, but I cannot ignore the potential consequences for myself. I have worked hard to pay off my own debts, save for emergencies, and plan for my future, and co-signing a large mortgage would put all of that at risk. I also worry that if something went wrong, it would ruin our relationship and possibly put me in a legally and financially dangerous situation. Rachel's frustration has made family gatherings uncomfortable, and I'm constantly worried about the tension this has created. I know she sees this as me turning my back on her, but I feel that maintaining healthy boundaries is necessary. I've tried to explain that supporting her doesn't have to mean risking my financial stability, but she interprets my caution as a lack of care. So, AITA for refusing to co-sign my sister's mortgage after her divorce? I feel like I'm doing the responsible thing for both of us, but Rachel and some family members see it as selfish and unsupportive. I'm trying to find ways to help that don't put my own financial future at risk, but it's causing a lot of tension and hurt feelings. I want my sister to have a stable home for her kids, but I also know that co-signing is not a risk I can take without potentially devastating consequences. I am struggling to balance my desire to help her with my need to protect my own security, and I'm unsure if I am the villain in this situation. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what could be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to take care of my sister's kids during her wedding week. I, 32M, have always been the responsible one in my family. I work a full-time job as an architect and have a routine that keeps me busy, but I also make an effort to be involved in my family's life. My younger sister, Lisa, 28F, has always been a little chaotic. She's fun and loving, but struggles with organization and time management. Over the years, I've helped her out in countless ways, driving her to work, helping with bills, giving advice about relationships, and sometimes babysitting her two kids, Max, 7, and Sophie, 4, when she had no one else. The story starts about a month ago. Lisa got engaged to her boyfriend, Mark, and the wedding is scheduled for the end of next month. I was thrilled for her, genuinely. I started hearing about the big plans and the stress of wedding planning, which I understood. Weddings are expensive, stressful, and complicated. She called me one evening and said she needed to talk. Lisa's wedding week is packed. Final dress fittings, rehearsal dinners, bachelor and bachelorette parties, and multiple family events. She said she has been trying to coordinate childcare for Max and Sophie during all of this, but her regular babysitter is unavailable that week, and some relatives have conflicts. She asked me if I could take the kids for the entire week leading up to the wedding. This means I would have to watch them for 7 full days, from early morning to late evening, including weekdays. I was stunned. I told her that my schedule at work is demanding and that I have little flexibility during that week. I reminded her that I already babysit when she has emergencies or occasional needs, but a whole week is beyond what I can reasonably commit to. She argued that since I am her older brother and I have more stable life circumstances, it's natural for me to help. She said I always talk about family and responsibility and that this is a chance to prove I care. I explained that while I love my nieces and nephew, full-time childcare for an entire week is a huge commitment, and I can't just drop everything at work and in my life to take on that responsibility. Lisa became very upset. She started bringing up every favor I've done for her over the years, implying that because I've helped in the past, I owe her this too. She said things like, "You've always been the responsible one. If you loved your family, you'd do this without complaining, and I can't believe you're making this about work instead of love." I tried to reason with her. I offered alternatives. Perhaps she could hire a temporary nanny, see if one of the grandparents could take shifts, or ask other friends and family. I even offered to watch the kids for a day or two, but she refused. She said anything less than the entire week was useless and that it would just complicate everything. The argument escalated. She accused me of being selfish and uncaring. I told her bluntly that expecting me to drop all my work and life responsibilities for a week, especially with no warning and no compensation, is unreasonable. She hung up angrily, saying that I was ruining her wedding and that she could no longer rely on me. Since then, our family dynamics have been tense. My parents sided with me, understanding that the request was excessive, but other relatives think I should have found a way to make it work. I also reached out to Mark, her fiancé, explaining my concerns, and he said he understood my perspective, though he admitted Lisa has been very stressed and emotional about the wedding. Now, I feel guilty. I love my sister and her kids, but I also have responsibilities and boundaries. I don't want to be painted as the villain in the family for saying no to an unreasonable request. I've tried to help in ways that are realistic, but she seems to think that anything less than full compliance is unacceptable. I'm worried about how this will affect our relationship, especially after the wedding. So, AITA for refusing to take care of my sister's kids for a full week during her wedding. I feel like I'm standing up for reasonable boundaries, but I also don't want to be the family member who lets her down in a meaningful life event. For context, I do have a decent relationship with Max and Sophie, and they like spending time with me. I just can't commit to a full week of childcare without severe disruption to my work and personal life. I've tried to compromise, but Lisa has not been receptive. I've considered that maybe my sister sees this as a rite of passage for family loyalty, but from my perspective, this is an extreme ask. I've also tried to involve other relatives, but most are either unavailable or unwilling due to their own schedules. I even suggested paying a professional, but she said that's not the same as family. I'm open to listening to other perspectives, but from where I stand, refusing is not being selfish. It's a matter of practicality and sanity. Still, I can't shake the feeling that maybe I'm being too rigid or uncaring about her special week. Has anyone experienced a similar situation where a family member's expectations seemed unreasonable? How do you maintain relationships while setting clear boundaries in moments like this? I'm conflicted because I genuinely love my sister and her children, but I also know that agreeing to her request would likely leave me stressed, exhausted, and possibly resenting her, which is not good for anyone involved. I want to be supportive, but I also need my life to continue. I would appreciate an honest judgment. AITA? AITA for refusing to help my sister after she sabotaged my career? I, 32F, have always been close to my younger sister, Emily, 28F, despite our very different personalities. I'm organized, career-focused, and detail-oriented, while Emily is spontaneous, social, and often a little reckless. Growing up, we balanced each other out, and I genuinely loved having her around. Our parents passed away when Emily was 19 and I was 23, which left me in charge of some financial and legal responsibilities. I did my best to protect her and make sure she had what she needed, but I admit it also fostered a sense of control in my life that sometimes rubbed Emily the wrong way. Fast forward to my current life. I work as a project manager at a tech startup. It's demanding but rewarding, and I've been eyeing a promotion to director for about 2 years. This promotion would mean more responsibility, more influence over company decisions, and a higher salary. It's something I've worked extremely hard for, often putting in late nights and weekend hours. I was finally shortlisted for the role last month, and everything was going well. Emily reached out one afternoon, telling me she needed my help. She had recently moved into a new apartment after a messy breakup, and claimed she was struggling with paying bills and setting up utilities. I offered to help in small ways initially, like forwarding a couple of important documents and giving her advice about budgeting. But soon, she escalated her requests. She wanted me to co-sign a lease, lend her a significant amount of money, and even cover some of her recurring expenses. I hesitated, telling her that I wasn't in a position to take on that kind of responsibility, especially with my own bills and the looming promotion, but she kept pushing. A few days later, I got an unexpected call from my boss. Apparently, someone had leaked private information about a major project to a competitor, and I was under investigation because the leak had occurred on my work account. I was shocked and completely denied any involvement. It didn't make sense because I'm meticulous about security and documentation. As the investigation unfolded, It became clear that someone had used my credentials to access confidential files. After a few tense days, the IT team traced the breach to Emily's laptop. She had borrowed my work laptop a few weeks ago to check an email while staying over in my apartment. I had no reason to suspect she would misuse it, but she had downloaded company documents, including sensitive project plans, and shared them externally, apparently to gain favor with someone she knew at another company. I confronted Emily about it, and she acted like it was no big deal. She insisted she was just helping a friend and didn't think it would hurt me. I told her she had jeopardized my career and everything I've worked for. She laughed and said she hadn't meant any harm, but the investigation had caused me to be temporarily suspended and put my promotion in serious jeopardy. It was only after several intense meetings and security audits that my name was cleared, but the damage to my professional reputation lingered. Since then, I've completely cut off any financial or logistical help to Emily. She's constantly texting and calling, asking for money, support with her job applications, and advice on her relationships. She throws guilt trips, saying that I'm being cold and selfish for not helping her during a difficult time. I feel betrayed and exhausted. I've told her that until she takes responsibility for what she did, at least admitting the severity of her actions, I cannot help her in any meaningful way. She sees it differently and has been posting passive-aggressive messages on social media about siblings who abandon family. My friends are divided on this. Some say I should forgive her and help because family is important and people make mistakes. Others agree that what she did was serious and that I have every right to protect myself and my career. My parents always emphasize the importance of loyalty and helping family, which makes me feel a bit guilty when I refuse, but I also can't ignore the fact that she deliberately sabotaged me. The tension is affecting my mental health. I'm constantly stressed when my phone buzzes, fearing it's Emily asking for help or trying to manipulate me emotionally. I've even started avoiding family gatherings because she shows up uninvited or expects me to take her side in arguments. I've tried mediation, but she refuses to acknowledge wrongdoing and instead frames herself as a victim. Recently, Emily tried to involve other relatives, claiming I'm refusing to be a good sister and that she's suffering because of me. Some of them have started giving me the cold shoulder, which adds another layer of stress. I considered giving in to avoid family conflict, but I can't forget how she risked my career. I feel torn because I still love my sister in some way, and part of me wants to forgive her, but I also feel like what she did crosses a line that cannot be ignored. I want to maintain boundaries and protect myself, but I worry that by cutting her off entirely, I'm becoming the villain in everyone's eyes. So, AITA for refusing to help my sister after she sabotaged my career, even though she claims she's struggling and needs family support. AITA for refusing to let my younger brother move back in after he lost his job and caused chaos in my home. I, 32F, have always been the responsible one in my family. I've worked hard to maintain a stable life. I have a decent apartment in the city, a steady job as a project manager, and a small but solid circle of friends. My younger brother, Matt, 27M, on the other hand, has always been a bit of a free spirit. He's charming and funny, but he's struggled with consistency in work and life. Over the years, I've tried to help him in small ways, loaning him money, giving him rides when his car broke down, letting him stay at my place for a few days during rough patches. But nothing I've done has seemed to help him develop stability. About a month ago, Matt called me in a panic. He'd been fired from his third job in 6 months and claimed he had nowhere to go. He sounded genuinely distressed, and my initial instinct was to help. I told him he could stay for a week while he got things together. That was my first mistake. Within the first 2 days, he had left dirty dishes all over my apartment, borrowed clothes without asking, and brought over a few of his friends for late-night gaming sessions, which meant I barely slept. I tried to set boundaries, but he brushed them off, saying I was being too uptight. By the end of the week, I realized this was more than a temporary situation. Matt was not going to straighten out in a few days. I asked him to look for apartments and work more seriously on his job search. He promised he would and begged to stay just a little longer, saying he was too depressed to handle leaving right away. Against my better judgment, I let him stay an extra week. That's when things really escalated. During that extra week, Matt became increasingly demanding. He criticized the way I kept my apartment, complained about my roommate's dog, and started expecting me to cook for him and drive him to interviews. He also borrowed my credit card to pay for groceries, claiming he would pay me back, and I was naive enough to believe him. By the time the second week ended, I had reached my limit. I told him he needed to leave immediately and gave him a deadline of 2 days to find another place. He flipped out, accused me of being selfish and cruel, and stormed out to stay at a friend's apartment temporarily. I thought that would be the end of it, but 2 weeks later, he showed up at my door unannounced. He had nowhere else to go and claimed his friend kicked him out. I was furious. I reminded him of all the ways he had overstepped boundaries and disrespected my home. He said he just wanted a safe space until he could get back on his feet, and he cried. I honestly felt torn. He is my brother, and part of me wanted to help, but I couldn't risk letting him back in. My apartment is small, I work long hours, and I value my peace. I told him very firmly that he could not stay and that he needed to find an alternative immediately. He left angry, calling me heartless, selfish, and saying I didn't really love him. Since then, Matt has texted me almost daily, alternating between pleading messages and angry rants. He's accused me of throwing him out like a stranger, of not being family-oriented, and of caring more about my comfort than him. Some of our mutual friends have reached out and said I should cut him some slack and help family in need, but others support me, saying I can't sacrifice my life and mental health to bail someone out who consistently refuses to take responsibility. I'm conflicted because part of me feels guilty for not helping, especially when he's in a tough spot. I also feel that I'm enabling his irresponsibility if I let him back in. I've offered to help in other ways, like helping him apply for jobs, giving him rides to interviews, or lending small amounts of money with clear repayment terms. But he refuses any structured help and insists he just needs a place to stay. Recently, our parents called me, asking me to show compassion and let Matt stay for a while. I explained the history and my boundaries, but they implied I'm being cold and unsisterly. Now I'm questioning whether I really am an asshole for putting my mental health and boundaries first, or if I'm being unfair to my brother in his time of need. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my brother move back in after he repeatedly disrespected my home and caused chaos, even though he's struggling and says he has nowhere else to go. AITA for refusing to let my boyfriend move in with me after his financial meltdown. I, 28F, have been dating my boyfriend, Alex, 30M, for about 4 years. For the most part, things have been good. We have a strong emotional connection, similar interests, and a decent level of compatibility. However, Alex has always been somewhat financially irresponsible. He tends to live paycheck to paycheck, frequently makes impulsive purchases, and rarely saves for emergencies. Over the years, I've tried to support him without enabling bad habits. I've offered budgeting advice, shared tips for saving, and occasionally helped cover small, unexpected expenses, but I've always drawn a line at taking on his financial responsibilities. Recently, Alex's situation took a sharp turn. About 2 months ago, he lost his job at a tech startup that went under suddenly. He scrambled to find temporary work, but has been unable to secure a stable position that pays enough to cover his rent and bills. Within a few weeks, he told me that he couldn't pay his rent anymore and asked if he could move in with me temporarily until he got back on his feet. I live in a one-bedroom apartment that I rent myself, and while I love Alex and care about him deeply, I was immediately uncomfortable with the idea. I explained that my apartment is not large enough for 2 people long-term, and I have strict budgetary limits because I am saving for a car, moving into a larger apartment, and building my emergency fund. I also mentioned that living together would significantly change my daily routine, work-from-home setup, and personal space, which I rely on for mental stability. I offered alternatives like helping him find a short-term sublet, lending him some money for rent, helping him negotiate with his landlord, or contributing to a temporary Airbnb stay. Alex insisted that none of those options would work for him, and that moving in with me was the only solution. When I refused, he became upset. He accused me of being unsupportive and selfish, saying that a real partner would help him when he needed it most. He implied that my refusal meant I didn't care about our relationship or his well-being. He also said that I was choosing my comfort over love, which made me feel guilty, but I still couldn't agree to have him move in. I explained that supporting him doesn't have to mean taking him in, and that I was willing to help in other ways that were sustainable for both of us. He said that those options were insufficient and that he needed full-time access to my apartment. The situation worsened over the following weeks. Alex started showing up at my place unannounced, sometimes dropping by multiple times in a day to discuss his plans or vent about his financial stress. He would try to subtly guilt me into letting him stay, saying things like, I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious, or it's just temporary. You won't even notice. His tone often made me feel pressured, anxious, and trapped, and I began avoiding interactions with him outside of work and friends. I also noticed that his behavior was affecting my mental health. I was having trouble sleeping, concentrating, and enjoying my free time. I tried having calm conversations about boundaries. I told him that my decision was about protecting both my space and our relationship, that I wanted to support him without enabling financial dependency, and that living together right now could create resentment and stress that might hurt us in the long run. He didn't accept this explanation. Instead, he accused me of abandoning him in his time of need and suggested that I was prioritizing material concerns over emotional ones. He also threatened that our relationship might not survive if I didn't agree to let him move in. Family and friends have been involved as well. Some friends and his relatives believe I'm justified in setting boundaries, pointing out that moving in with someone during a financial crisis is a major decision that should be carefully considered. Others have told me that I'm being unsympathetic and that I should show love by making the sacrifice. I've tried to balance my approach, offering help that doesn't compromise my own well-being, like contributing to rent for a temporary sublet or helping him find gigs, but Alex says it's not enough. I'm now in a position where I feel pressured from multiple sides. On one hand, I want to help Alex and maintain a healthy relationship. On the other hand, I know that allowing him to move in without a plan for financial stability could create long-term problems, including debt, tension, and potential conflict over space and responsibilities. I've been careful to communicate that my refusal isn't about ending the relationship or not caring, but about making a responsible decision for both of us. The tension has reached a breaking point. Alex is staying with friends or in short-term accommodations, but he frequently texts me, complaining about how stressful and expensive his current situation is, and subtly blaming me for not letting him move in. I'm worried that my refusal is causing permanent damage to our relationship, but I also fear that giving in would lead to resentment and potential conflict that could harm both of us. So, AITA for refusing to let my boyfriend move in after he lost his job, even though it's causing tension and guilt in our relationship. I feel like I'm trying to help in sustainable ways without sacrificing my personal space and financial stability, but he and some others see me as selfish or unsupportive. I want to maintain our relationship while also protecting my own well-being, but I'm struggling with how to navigate this without being cast as the villain. AITA for refusing to let my roommate's dog live in my apartment full-time. I, 29F, live in a 2-bedroom apartment with my roommate, Jenna, 27F. We have lived together for about 2 years and have had a mostly smooth relationship. We split rent and bills evenly, share chores reasonably, and generally respect each other's space. About 6 months ago, Jenna started dating a guy named Eric, and it became clear early on that Eric has a dog, a medium-sized, energetic Labrador mix named Buddy. Initially, Buddy was only visiting occasionally, like when Jenna went to Eric's place or they came over for short visits, and I didn't mind at all. I like dogs, and I understand that pets are part of people's lives. The problem started when Eric proposed that Buddy could stay over more often. Jenna framed it as just a few nights a week, and I agreed reluctantly. I thought, okay, he's friendly, house-trained, and it's temporary. But over the past 3 months, the arrangement has escalated. What started as a couple of nights a week became almost every night, and now Buddy essentially lives here full-time, even when Eric isn't around. I tried talking to Jenna about it several times. First, I mentioned that I wasn't comfortable with the idea of a dog living here permanently, because I work from home and I need quiet and focus. Buddy is energetic, barks a lot, and often chews on things when unsupervised. Jenna said she understood but assumed I would get used to it, and insisted that I can't really say no because Buddy is her boyfriend's dog too. I told her that it's my apartment too and that I have boundaries. I even suggested that they hire a dog walker or look for doggy daycare for Buddy when they want to have him overnight. Jenna got defensive and said I was being overly controlling and anti-dog. A few weeks later, Buddy had an accident on the carpet, which was not the first one. I had to clean it up, and I confronted Jenna again. I explained that while I like dogs in general, having Buddy here full-time is causing me stress, affecting my work, and making it hard to feel comfortable in my own home. Jenna said I was being unreasonable and that I should compromise for the sake of the relationship. Things escalated further when Buddy got sick, had to go to the vet, and Jenna and Eric left me with him for a whole day while they ran errands. I spent hours dealing with vet appointments, cleaning, and managing the dog's needs. I felt completely taken advantage of. I told Jenna that I am not a substitute caretaker and that I am not responsible for Buddy. She accused me of being selfish and inconsiderate, saying that if I cared about her, I'd help her out. After that, I set a hard boundary. Buddy cannot stay overnight or be left with me without my explicit permission. Jenna was furious. She started passive-aggressively leaving Buddy in my bedroom when I wasn't home, using him to guilt me when I complained, and telling mutual friends that I hate dogs and don't support her relationship. I feel like I'm stuck between wanting to maintain our friendship and being firm about my boundaries. I love animals, and I have had pets in the past, but I also know my limits. I have allergies that flare up sometimes. I need quiet for work, and I simply don't want the full-time responsibility of a dog that belongs to someone else. Our other roommate, Alex, has tried to mediate. Alex agrees that Buddy living here full-time is unreasonable without a formal agreement or shared responsibilities. Jenna, however, is not budging. She says I'm ruining her relationship and that I'm not a good roommate if I don't accept Buddy living here. I offered solutions like alternating nights, having Buddy stay at Eric's, or investing in doggy daycare, but Jenna claims these are inconvenient and selfish suggestions. I even tried to explain that my concern is practical and logistical, not emotional. I work long hours, sometimes late nights, and need quiet space. Buddy's presence full-time makes it difficult to concentrate, and the barking, occasional accidents, and need for attention are disruptive. Jenna says I'm making excuses. I also feel resentment building because it seems like Jenna doesn't respect my home or my personal boundaries. I'm beginning to dread going home, which is stressful in itself. I'm afraid that this situation might force me to move out, which I don't want to do because I like my apartment and my rent is reasonable. I've tried compromising, communicating, and proposing alternatives, but Jenna refuses to acknowledge my discomfort. I am worried that standing firm will permanently damage our friendship, but I also feel like giving in would be unfair and unhealthy for me. I've considered that maybe Jenna views this as part of her relationship dynamic and that I should support her happiness, but my own happiness and well-being matter too. I'm also concerned that if I let Buddy stay full-time, it will set a precedent where other guests or pets could be treated similarly, eroding my sense of control over my own space. So, AITA for refusing to let my roommate's dog live in my apartment full-time? I feel like I'm trying to maintain boundaries respectfully, but Jenna is framing me as cruel and unreasonable. I'm conflicted because I want to support her in her relationship, but not at the expense of my own mental health, comfort, and living space. I would like to know if I'm genuinely being unreasonable here, or if my stance is valid and my roommate is overstepping. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what happened last Christmas. I, 28F, have always been close to my family, especially my younger sister, Emily, 25F. Growing up, we were inseparable, sharing everything from clothes to secrets. Our parents divorced when I was 12, but both of us maintained a strong bond despite the occasional tension that comes with family dynamics. I thought our relationship would always remain solid, but things changed last year, and I'm still struggling to come to terms with it. Last Christmas, Emily and her fiancé, Mark, 27M, hosted the family gathering at their new apartment. This was the first Christmas in several years that the whole family would be together, so I was excited to spend it with them. I had been traveling for work, so I arrived late on Christmas Eve. When I got there, I was greeted warmly by Emily and Mark, but I immediately noticed a strange tension in the room. Our parents were there, as well as my older brother, Jake, 30M, and his partner, Sarah, 29F. Everyone seemed a bit on edge, but I attributed it to the stress of hosting. Dinner was mostly fine until dessert. Emily had baked a cake, and as we were cutting it, Mark made a joke about my biggest flaw. He said, "At least your sister didn't inherit your stubborn streak." Everyone laughed, including Emily, but I felt a sting. I've always known Mark had a sharp sense of humor, and sometimes it borders on offensive, but I usually brush it off. This time, however, it felt personal. I tried to laugh it off, but Emily leaned in and whispered, "He's just joking, don't be so sensitive." After dinner, we moved to the living room for presents. That's when things really took a turn. Emily handed me a gift and said, "Open it. I know you'll love it." I unwrapped it, and inside was a photo album titled Emily's Favorite Memories Without Your Name. Confused, I opened it, and every page had pictures of Emily with friends, extended family, and even some of our parents, but I was nowhere to be found. I confronted Emily, asking why I wasn't included in the album, and she said, "It's my album. It's memories I cherish. You're in a lot of other albums. Don't take it personally." I tried to let it go, thinking maybe it was a misunderstanding, but it stung more than I expected. Later that evening, Mark pulled me aside. He told me that Emily had expressed frustration that I always try to overshadow her, and that she didn't want me taking center stage in family events anymore. I was stunned. I never considered myself competitive with Emily. If anything, I've always tried to support her. I confronted Emily about this, asking why she felt that way, and she got defensive. She said I was too controlling and that I always needed to have my opinion heard. I tried to explain that I was just being involved and wanted to help, but she refused to see it my way. The conversation ended with her saying, "Maybe you just need to step back for once." The next morning, I left early, feeling hurt and confused. I talked to my parents about it, and while they were sympathetic, they told me to let Emily handle her own feelings and that I might just need to give her space. Jake, however, texted me saying that Emily had been upset about my behavior for months and that maybe I should apologize for being overbearing. I didn't respond. I felt like the entire family had turned against me, and I wasn't sure how to navigate it. Fast forward a few months, Emily got engaged, and I received a formal invitation to the wedding. At first, I was excited. I really wanted to be there for her, but as I thought about Christmas and everything that happened, I realized I couldn't just pretend like nothing had occurred. I texted Emily, explaining that I was still hurt from how I felt excluded last year, and that I needed some time before I could celebrate such an important day with her. I told her I might not be able to attend the wedding, and her response shocked me. She accused me of being selfish, saying that I was letting one incident ruin our entire relationship, and that family was supposed to support each other. She said she couldn't believe I would punish her on her wedding day. I explained that this wasn't about punishment. It was about my feelings and boundaries. I told her I needed time to rebuild trust and that attending her wedding under these circumstances would feel forced and insincere. I offered to have a private dinner with her before the wedding or to celebrate with her afterward, but she said it wasn't the same. Emily then started sending me messages almost daily, accusing me of trying to control her life and claiming that I didn't care about her happiness. It escalated to the point where she blocked me on social media and stopped responding to texts. Our parents have been caught in the middle. They've tried to mediate, but Emily refuses to speak with me, and my attempts to explain my perspective are met with hostility. Jake says I should apologize and move on to save the family peace, while Sarah thinks Emily is being dramatic. I feel trapped because I don't want to burn bridges, but I also can't ignore how hurt I felt. Attending her wedding now feels like I would be validating her actions and suppressing my own feelings, which doesn't seem healthy. My friends say I'm justified in setting boundaries, but some family members claim I'm being unreasonable and selfish. That family means showing up even when it's uncomfortable. Now, I'm facing mounting pressure as the wedding date approaches. Emily's messages have stopped, but my parents are constantly asking me if I'll attend. I haven't made a final decision, but I know I can't fake happiness on a day that should be joyful for her without feeling like I'm betraying myself. I can't help but wonder if refusing to attend makes me the bad person in this situation. I love Emily and always have, but I also need to protect my own emotional well-being. So, Reddit AITA for potentially refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what happened last Christmas. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my house during their wedding weekend. This is going to be long, but I really need some outside perspective because my family is divided and I feel like I might be the bad guy, even though I have my reasons. I, 32F, have a younger sister, Emily, 28F, and we used to be very close, but over the last few years, our relationship has been strained. Emily got engaged about a year ago to her fiancé, Mark, 30M, who I'll admit I've never liked. There have been a few incidents over the years where he's been disrespectful or dismissive toward me, though Emily always brushes it off. I was hoping that things would be different during the wedding planning process, but that hasn't been the case. My house is a medium-sized townhouse that I live in alone. I love having people over, but I also really value my personal space. I've had friends and distant relatives stay over for a night or two in the past, and that's been fine. But Emily's wedding is a big deal, and their wedding weekend involves multiple events: rehearsal dinner, ceremony, brunch the next morning, etc. A few months ago, Emily asked if Mark could stay at my house the night before the wedding. I was caught off guard because I wasn't planning on having anyone stay over besides myself, and the thought of hosting her fiancé, who I don't get along with, for an entire night stressed me out. I explained to Emily that I wasn't comfortable having Mark stay in my home. I tried to phrase it gently. I said I'd be happy to help them find a nearby Airbnb or hotel and that I could assist with transportation if needed. I emphasized that this wasn't personal toward Mark, but that I need my space, especially before what is supposed to be a fun and busy weekend. Emily looked disappointed, but she said she understood at the time. Fast forward a couple of weeks, and I start hearing from other family members that Emily is upset with me. Apparently, she told my parents and our extended family that I refuse to help out, and that I'm making things unnecessarily difficult. I got a few texts from my cousins asking why I wouldn't just let Mark stay over. I tried to explain again that it's not that I don't want to help. They can stay nearby, and I can help with logistics. But people seem to interpret my refusal as me being selfish or petty. Things escalated last weekend when Emily came over to my house unexpectedly. I was cooking dinner and hadn't seen her coming. She walked in and immediately started asking why I hadn't booked a place for Mark yet. I reminded her that I had suggested hotels and that it was her responsibility to book, not mine. She got angry, saying that I'm the maid of honor, so it's my job to accommodate her fiancé, and that I'm ruining the wedding weekend before it even starts. I told her that I'm happy to be the maid of honor and do all the things that role involves, but that does not include giving up my personal space to someone I don't feel comfortable hosting. She shouted that this is ridiculous, that everyone else in the family would understand, and stormed out. Since then, my parents have called me and tried to mediate. They say that I should put aside personal feelings for the sake of family harmony, and that Mark only staying one night isn't a big deal. I get that their point, but I also feel like they're dismissing my feelings. This isn't just about being difficult. I have anxiety around having people stay overnight, and I honestly don't feel safe with Mark. In the past, he's made comments that felt controlling or invasive, and I don't want to put myself in a position where I might feel cornered or uncomfortable. I've offered other solutions. I can pick him up from the hotel and bring him to the rehearsal dinner, or I can help organize a shuttle from a nearby Airbnb. I've suggested he stay with one of his friends in town or a nearby hotel. I even offered to pay for his stay if that would help, but Emily insists that nothing else works. She keeps saying that it's the most convenient option and that I'm being stubborn and rude. Meanwhile, other family members are divided. Some say I should just suck it up for a night, while others understand that I have boundaries and that hosting someone I'm not comfortable with is a legitimate concern. Mark himself hasn't said much directly to me, but from the few interactions we've had, I can see why Emily would be frustrated. I get it from her perspective. She's excited about her wedding and wants everything to go smoothly, and she probably feels like I'm making things unnecessarily complicated. But from my perspective, this is a hard boundary about my personal space, mental health, and safety. I don't know if I'm overreacting. I feel like if this were a different fiancé, someone I liked or trusted, I might feel differently. But given the history and my genuine discomfort, I feel justified in setting this boundary. I've tried to compromise in every way I can think of, and Emily still seems to think I'm the villain here. Our parents are pressuring me, and I can tell it's causing tension with the rest of the family too. I really want to support Emily and make her wedding weekend special, but I also don't want to feel unsafe or resentful the entire time. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my house during her wedding weekend. I've offered alternatives, but she and some family members are insisting that I should just get over it for one night. I feel like my boundaries and feelings should matter too, but maybe I'm being unreasonable. I just don't know anymore. Has anyone ever faced a similar situation with family boundaries and wedding weekends? How did you navigate it without feeling like the bad guy? AITA for refusing to let my sister stay with me after she left her abusive partner. I, 34F, have a younger sister, Jenna, 30F, who has always been a free spirit. Growing up, she was adventurous and impulsive, while I tended to be more cautious and structured. Despite our differences, we were close, and I've always tried to support her. 2 years ago, she got involved with a man named David, 32M, and things initially seemed normal. Over time, however, it became clear that he was controlling, manipulative, and emotionally abusive. Jenna confided in me several times about his behavior, including isolating her from friends, criticizing her constantly, and pressuring her into decisions she wasn't comfortable with. About 6 months ago, after an especially intense argument that escalated to him yelling and breaking some of her belongings, Jenna decided to leave him. She had nowhere to go and asked if she could stay with me temporarily until she figured things out. I agreed, knowing she needed immediate safety and support. I set clear boundaries from the start. She could stay for a month while she found a place, and we would need to establish rules for the household, including shared responsibilities and respecting my space. During that month, things were manageable. Jenna was grateful, and I tried to make her feel comfortable. However, she soon started testing the boundaries I had set. She would leave her things all over the apartment, borrow my personal items without asking, and invite friends over without telling me. I reminded her about the rules gently, but she would get defensive, saying I was being controlling and that I didn't understand what she was going through. As the initial month ended, she had not yet secured a new place. I extended her stay for another 2 weeks, thinking she needed more time. However, her behavior escalated further. She began leaving dishes in the sink for days, letting her dog roam freely and bark constantly, and using my utilities excessively without consideration. She also started asking me to cover more of her expenses, like groceries and gas, even though I was already stretched financially. I tried talking to her about the strain this was causing, but she accused me of being unsupportive and selfish, implying that I was more concerned about my comfort than her safety. At this point, I realized that I could not continue to let her stay with me. My apartment is small, and I was starting to feel constantly stressed, anxious, and resentful. I suggested she look into temporary shelters, short-term rentals, or staying with a trusted friend while she got back on her feet. I also offered to help her financially with a deposit for a new apartment or assist her in finding a place, but I made it clear that she could not stay here long-term. Jenna reacted very poorly. She cried, yelled, and accused me of abandoning her during her time of need. She claimed that a sister should prioritize family over personal convenience and that I was betraying her. She also sent messages to other family members, portraying me as heartless and uncaring. Some relatives have confronted me, asking why I'm not doing more to help, and I explained the situation and my attempts to assist her without compromising my own stability. They seemed sympathetic, but some still expressed disappointment in my decision. The tension between us has grown significantly. Jenna has found a friend who is letting her stay for a short time, but she frequently texts and calls me in frustration, expressing anger that I would not continue to house her. I feel guilty because I want her to be safe and supported, but I also feel that my personal space, mental health, and financial stability are being compromised. I have tried to support her in ways that do not involve me housing her, such as helping search for apartments, lending money for deposits, and even accompanying her to viewings, but she has dismissed these as insufficient. I am caught between wanting to help my sister and needing to protect my own well-being. I feel like she views my refusal as a personal betrayal, and I fear that this may permanently damage our relationship. I also worry that continuing to allow her to stay with me would create resentment and stress that could harm both of us in the long term. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister continue staying with me after leaving her abusive partner, even though she feels abandoned. I am trying to support her in ways that are safe and sustainable for both of us, but she and some family members see my actions as selfish. I want to help her rebuild her life without compromising my own stability, but I am unsure if setting this boundary makes me the villain in her eyes. I feel torn between protecting my own mental health and supporting my sister, and it's causing a lot of guilt and family tension. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.